Hey everyone, welcome back to another X-Files episode. This is Genderbender, the 14th episode of the first season. This one is again an interesting, if somewhat bizarre episode, and deals with a gender-swapping um, character, hence the name Genderbender. Um, this concept of shapeshifting comes up a lot in regards to the aliens that are part of the series. And it is alluded to, well, it's not really even alluded to, it's pretty much ham-fistedly shoved down your throats that these people that we deal with in the episode, the kindred, are in fact aliens that have been living on Earth for some reason. The reasons for doing what they're doing and having existing the way they existed is never explained. They're there for some reason, but again, by the end of the episode, they're gone. So it's very strange. So the way this starts off is there's a man. A woman takes a man in a nightclub, and they have they basically sleep together afterwards, and then the man dies, and the other guy, Marty, he gets up and leaves the room as a man, not a woman. Cuts to the agents, and that's like the opening stinger. The agents get called to the scene. Mulder, for some reason, believes that this has to do with some sort of like overdose on pheromones that caused him to go into like cardiac arrest or something similar. And this is based on, apparently there were previous killings that had happened. The evidence leads them to believe this Amish-like group called the Kindred is responsible. I forget exactly how they make that transition. But he basically finds some evidence that lends him to believe that. So he goes to investigate where they are. And they're in this place called Stevenson, Massachusetts. I don't think that's a real location. If it is, it's probably out in Western Mass. Being from Massachusetts, there's a lot of different parts of our tiny little state, but I don't know all of them off the top of my head. But they typically make places up for the show just so it's like, unless it's like a major city that you would know, because they don't want to give a small town the wrong impression, I would assume. Although I'll look it up, and for the next one, I'll mention if it was real or not. Anyway, so they meet some of the kindred as they come into town. They ride a like horse-drawn carriage. They never are alone. Mulder doesn't really get anywhere, but Scully befriends this boy. Well, he's not really a boy, but this guy that's watching the carriage while the others go into like the local store. And the kindred leave after a little bit, and Mulder and Scully head up to meet with them, where the kindred meet them at basically the periphery of their territory and tell them there's no weapons permitted in their town. So if they want to come in, they have to surrender their weapons, which they begrudgingly do. They come in, the kindred basically have them have dinner. Mulder and Scully ask some questions. They don't really get any answers, and the kindred see them out. Mulder and Scully Mulder decides that's not enough and sneaks back in. During dinner, a man had theoretically choked on something, and they brought him away, and Scully said they need to get him medical attention, and the kindred said they treat their own. Scully meets with the same guy she met in the town, and he tells him things. Well, Mulder gets to see some crazy rituals that go on under the town, where they like inter someone and that like fixes them somehow. They have this like weird underground kind of like cave system or something under their town that can heal people. Well, it can heal the kindred, because the kindred are, as we find out, not people as we understand them. Alright, so meanwhile, the murders are kind of continuing, and Mulder at this point has kind of tracked down, like, he finds out who the killer is, and they track him down, and there's like a chase. Mulder chases him out, and um, the the agents get basically like knocked down, and the kindred come out of nowhere and take um, Marty back with them, and they vanish. And when they go back to where the kindred were, um, there's nothing in the town. Also, when they were investigating it, Mulder notes that there were no children and that the faces looked the same as the pictures they saw at the general store that they stopped at. So he theorizes that they hadn't died of old age or gotten any older at all, and that they'd been the same people living up there the whole time, and that the kindred were in fact aliens, and they had left. The whole concept of this episode is a very bizarre one, especially for the time we were dealing with. We're talking early to mid 90s. And I mean, nowadays it's far more accepted, but back then, things like this bisexuality or, gender reassignment, if you will, to put it crassly, wasn't well. People didn't think well of people that decided, hey, I want to be a woman, or hey, I want to be a man, when I was the opposite, or bisexual people in general. It was just not to say that they were bad people. It's just like it was kind of like a taboo subject. And so this was a little bit forward thinking. The agents don't really have any issue with the idea of a gender switching character, so much as they have a problem with a gender switching character that murders people. So it's an interesting thing, and it shows like an interesting concept with the problem of abstinence. When you're completely abstinent of something for your whole life, oftentimes if you're exposed to it much later on, you don't have those tolerances for it that you would have if you had just been exposed to something from a young age. Now, obviously, that isn't 100% true. There are some people that will be abstinent their whole life or most of their life, and when they're exposed to, say, alcohol or sex or drugs, and they'll still turn them down. And there are the people who will full-heartedly go nuts over it. It's just dependent on the individual's personality, really. And there really isn't an Aesop there, but just my thoughts. At the end of the day, this is a solid episode. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's a little bit above average. We're dealing with some aliens. It isn't a myth arc as far as I'm aware, because you're not really sure what they are. You're just pretty certain that they're not normal humans. If they're aliens, they're aliens, but I don't believe it's ever really they ever really come back or mention these guys again. Not that I'm aware of, at least. Like maybe on way in later seasons, but certainly not recently. So 6 out of 10. It's a solid episode. You can skip it if you're going just for the myth arc, but I think it has some interesting stuff in it. Definitely give it at least a look-see once, see if you like it or not. Other than that, there's nothing really that stood out to me as really bad. So, I mean, the idea is pretty sound, and, well, I don't want to say pretty sound, but it's different and weird enough that I think it works. Anyway, so tune in next time when we talk about Lazarus. All right, folks. Good night.